240 down to 100. Now, Jordan, you've got to really understand and have confidence in, I mean, you went from 240 to 100. That takes some confidence to be able to get there and not get scared about doing that type of a move. So Jordan's my business partner in Winston-Salem. We do a lot of deals together. And it's really fun because Jordan also does a call with a fast track group here. And a lot of you guys jump on those calls. And he does a lot of stuff with agents, like how to work with agents, also does some live calls, also helps do some dispo, and just really great about working with you guys on getting to success. So Jordan got Keith Warren, who's new in our fast track program. And I believe you started working some of Jordan's leads, some of these dead leads or leads that were sitting in Jordan's CRM that really weren't going anywhere. And you just started calling and following up on these leads, right? So Keith, tell us about this lead that you found and how you got them warm, because you basically handed this off to Jordan. Jordan went on appointment and secured the contract. So let's start there. What was that process like for you talking to these leads? And then what happened with this lead? What was their situation and how did you get them warmed up?
I didn't even know how to really talk to people, so I know I just need to put the reps in. I just called a bunch of people. I think I went through about 900 to 1,000 people.
You talked to 900 or 1,000?
Yeah, definitely.
Wow.
Called way more than that, but I got on the phone with a bunch of people, heard a bunch of stories. Nothing was a deal. I didn't even know what a deal looked like. And then 5, 6 days of calling, I come across Marilyn, and she was super sweet. She was going through all kinds of stuff. Disabled veteran husband, financial situation was tough. It was a sticky situation. I knew that she needed some help. And then I told her about Jordan. He's over there in Winston-Salem. He does all kinds of investing around there. He's my partner. She's like, okay, well, we have a Mark Spain representative coming out the 31st to walk it. He's giving us this. And I was like, oh man, that's a lot of money. Why don't you take it? And she was like, well, I don't know. I don't know if I trust him. I built some good rapport with her. I said, well, this is me. This is my buddy Jordan. We're out here doing deals all the time, building that rapport with her. And she was like, I'd love to meet you guys after the Mark Spain representative. And I was like, why not before? She said, okay.
So Jordan, Mark Spain is like a huge player in your market, right? Like a big investor.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's like on
Okay.
radio, TV, everywhere, right? So he's
Billboards.
really well known. So you're up
Yeah.
against one of the biggest players in the market. So what you did, Keith, is you said, "Hey, let us come before him."
I was like,
Okay.
why wait that long? Why don't you meet us and we can give you a better offer faster? And she's like, okay. And, I just kind of handed it off to Jordan and he went and took care of her. And I don't know what she said about me, Jordan, but it sounds like she really appreciated me catching her at the right time.
That's what's so beautiful about this deal, honestly. Like, I love how Keith started it, and that's why the deal's so special, is that, like, one, he was brand new, which he's off to the races now, which is the goal, and that's phenomenal. But, like, one, he was brand new, just acknowledged he had no idea what to say, had no idea what the house was worth. I mean, not to make you sound not experienced, Keith, it's just that's the stage you were in. Heard Mark Spain's coming out, didn't know the price that they threw off the top of their head, if that was even fair or not. But the rapport piece, and that's what I like live and die by here in my market, is the rapport, the reputation. Like, that piece of the business is kind of what's making us do well. And Keith just nailed it on the head. He figured out exactly what they needed, figured out all the pressure points, what was going on, didn't let the price that they threw out, or didn't let the fact that Mark Spain coming out there like intimidate him or back him off or whatever. Truly just made a friend. They threw out an astronomical price, and I'm glad Keith didn't know whether that was a good deal or not.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned that, Jordan, because oftentimes we let price dictate the entire motivation, and often price is a deceiver. If there's some sort of distress going on, if the seller's facing some sort of hardship, and if there's some urgency, those three things are enough to usually create motivation. So think about this. If the buyer then gives a high price, it's probably not their bottom line. It's probably not really where they're at. We at our company, we just take that into consideration, but we don't let that stop us from making an offer or going on appointment or doing the next step. So never let the price the seller tells you dictate if it's a deal or if you can get something done or if you should go to the next step, as long as you've got those other three things there, right? And again, those three things are typically it's some sort of distress with the property, some sort of financial hardship, some sort of urgency. Those three things typically mean that they'll take a much lower price.
She had all of those.
Yeah. Did you uncover that in any kind of like systematic way? Were you following some sort of a script or how were you doing it?
No, that's a really good question. I just talked to her genuinely. not to give too much personal information, but moving to Kentucky, daughter's going to college, bad neighbors trying to get their dogs taken away, just a bunch of stuff that was like,
Hmm.
wow, you need to get out of here. We're both faith-based, we're both Christians. And she was like, I've been praying for a solution. You're an angel. Like, and I told her, like, I'll come meet you. She's like, oh, you're so sweet. You're such an angel. I was like, it's no big deal. Like, I just want to help you. And just telling her I just wanted to find a solution, that just lowered her barrier like to nothing. She was totally vulnerable. She even like teared up a little bit talking about her husband and stuff. And I was like, we'll figure this out for you. The numbers, she was at 240.
Her original price was
Yeah.
240.
She said, I have an offer at 286, but I'll do 240 for you. I was like, well, let Jordan come and check it out. And he knows better than I do. I didn't act like I knew more than I knew. And she appreciated that. And ultimately, Jordan gets out there and locks it up for 100 grand. So,
Wow. 240 down to 100.
yeah.
Now, Jordan, how valuable do you think it is to go on appointment? I mean, Keith warmed it up really well. Could it have been closed on the phone, or do you feel like going on appointment was special?
Well, Keith did everything in the deal as far as the hard part and the important piece of it. The deal from his point to me was honestly pretty easy. So yes, I do have faith that he could have locked it up on the phone. He really could have. Because the main point here going from 200 to 100 was we established our value. And that's what, a lot of other guys, you as well, Jerry, have kind of instilled in me that like we bring a big value to this world and this industry. And so Keith, knowing that they needed the 11 grand up front, EMD, that they're moving to Kentucky, they're on a timeline, they got this, they got that. Husband's been blown up twice. He has PTSD. He's had 27 surgeries. Like, so whenever we go in for that anchor, hey, in a perfect world, I'd love to be around 100. Hey, in a perfect world, I'd love to be under 100. Before we even talked numbers, when I went to their house, and the house was rough. A lot of kids, animals, stuff running everywhere. They told me, we have already decided we want to do business with you guys, which honestly put a lot of pressure on me because I already knew that they told Keith 240.
Mm.
And I'm like, whoa, we are way off. And she's sitting here saying, I've already decided that we're going to do business with you guys. So yes, going on appointment was crucial to go ahead and full circle it and like be a real person. Something Keith didn't mention was the fact that they'd been taken advantage of by another wholesaler or another investor, maybe not a wholesaler, but somebody really did try to take advantage of them. And so coming full circle in person, shaking hands, sitting down with the kids, caring about their life and their family and actually being there was a huge piece of it.
Yeah, I love that. So, Jordan, let's walk through a little bit that positioning there, because this is a very common where they have a number in their head, maybe, or a number that they initially want to put out there. And then there's the number we want to be at. And there's a way to get to that without jeopardizing that rapport, right? Without compromising your integrity. So, first of all, step one is we always want the seller to give their price first, right? There's an old saying, he who names the price first loses. So typically we're always asking the seller, okay, well, what's the price that works for you, right? Talk about how you get to that. And then you said something really, really cool that it's a Joe Homebuyer, staple, which is in the perfect world, I would be at this, right? So walk us through that. Why do you want them to give a number first? And then how do you called it anchor. What is an anchor and how do you get to that anchor? This is like negotiating 101. And this is where you've got to really understand and have confidence in, I mean, you went from 240 to 100. That takes some confidence to be able to get there and not get scared about doing that type of a move.
It was intimidating for sure. But yes, Cody Hoffine, with Joe Homebuyer, he taught me about the anchor. And it's whenever we first started the franchise and I was shaking in my boots on the front porch of somebody's property, knowing that I had to really get them down to get the deal done. And I sold the deal to Cody and Mark.
Yeah.
So he taught me about the anchor while I was in the car driving there. And he said, dude, just do it. So the idea of an anchor, it's not an offer. That's what's like really important. It's really not an offer and it's not definitive. So you're not saying, hey, I'll give you 100 grand. Or you're not saying, hey, the most I can do is 100 grand. Because then it's like you literally just told them like, hey, the most I can do is 100 grand. And people think the psychological piece sounds like, hey, I'm confident. The most I can do is 100 grand. Well, then if they say no and you come bumping up, you look like an idiot. So the anchor is meant to solicit a no. It's supposed to be unrealistic and it's not an offer. It's not definitive. On this one, I mean, I just high level, I ran the numbers 250 ARV, 70%. You know, we had this much square footage, average this price per square foot. It landed a cash buyer in the 140, 150 kind of range. Tax value was lower hundreds. And one thing I learned live in Utah with Cody and Mark on live call with the seller was how to go through the steps to do the anchor. And it doesn't have to be a price point. It could be a tax value. It could be a, you know, hey, I would assume other investors are probably in the 100 mark. Is that right? You know, or hey, in a perfect world, I'd love to be around 100. Or say the tax value is 100, your anchor could be, hey, in a perfect world, I'd love to be around tax value. And then it should feel like you're going to get booted off the porch. It really should. That's how it's designed. It should facilitate a no, because psychologically, that like in the sales process, you need to get a no from the seller to make them.
So then, Jordan, when they say, which is typically what will happen, there's no way I can be at 100. Then what's your follow-up response?
There is no way, Jerry, that we're in a perfect world right now. But how close can you get me to 100?
There you go. How close can you get to 100?
That's why I love the perfect world.
That's the follow-up.
And you can make it fun. If they're like, hey, man, throw out your number. In a perfect world, I'd love to be under 100. Man, get out of here. Like, we're way too far off. Yeah, the world is crazy too. It's not perfect, but how close can you get me to 100?
Yeah.
And so if they start at 240 and you want to get it, you know, under 150 so you can sell it to an investor or whatever, so you're trying to get it, you know, you're trying to build in your wholesale fee, your assignment fee, then you just anchor.
But in this case, they didn't. They said 100 works.
This is where this deal is key, that Keith established the value. And that's also, you know, another big thing. Like, we determine the value, we determine the discount that we get on a property. And so in their mind, they started at 240, where whether it's realistic or not, whether they felt insulted at 100 or not, doesn't necessarily matter. They need 11K. They've got to move in a couple of weeks. They've got all these pressure points. They want to work with somebody that they like and trust. You know, all those things, all those value adds. Mm-hmm. That's where we determine how much we get paid. So I don't feel like we took advantage of them. We did them one phenomenal service.
Yeah, because again, when we're dealing with distressed sellers, it's not just price. It's all the other things. It's speed, it's convenience. In this case, it was $11,000. It was all these other factors. As is, so they don't have to do things to the property, no repairs, like all these things add up. And that's where you're bringing tremendous value and you're able to show that value. But really, the value stack is still a small percentage of the overall equation to a deal. It's still the relationship, because a seller, more than anything, more than price or anything else, what they're looking for is confidence in you, security that you're going to perform. Because if you don't perform and they're on this crunch timeline, then they're in a worse position than they were before. So that's what usually matters most, is confidence that you can perform.
Yes, and that's also why it's so important. And the guys and girls that are on this call right now, they hear me talk about it a lot. That's where we also have to run a really good, strong, ethical business and mean well, really mean well. There's a lot of deals that we all are working on here. And it's like, hey, you can still swing the bat, you can still try, you can still move forward, but let's not lead them on for 30 days. Let's just within 5 days or 10 days, figure out how good of a deal we have.
That's also why you need to be contracting deep meaning big discount, because what you don't want to do is be running a fine margin where, you know, there's a high probability that you can't squeak out a profit. And now you're chasing that contingency or closing date because you're trying to find a 5K, 6K, 3K deal. You knew you bought well, and you knew that you would be able to move that deal with confidence. So it allowed you to come in with strong terms, really give that confidence to the seller, because you know you're getting a deal.
And Keith's brought up a good point plenty of times, that he's not trying to manufacture deals. And he went through, you know, 1,000 leads to get this lead. And that's why I love his style now, with especially everything he's doing as he's growing and progressing, is he's not trying to manufacture a deal. He's finding the people that want his service, see his value, and are willing to give a discount, you know, because of it.
Yeah. Another way I like to say that, Jordan, is we don't create motivation, we find motivation. And so really, honestly, we should be taking like the negotiation and like the sales skills sort of out of the equation. It's really not that. It's, can I talk to enough sellers where we can find someone that's already motivated and we can provide a solution for them? That's really what you're looking for. You're looking to find it, not create it. Creating it kind of implies that you have to convince the seller to do something, right? If you're trying to convince a seller, they're not there yet, which is why Keith talked to 1,000 people before he found a motivated seller, right? That's what it's going to be like oftentimes. Jordan, I remember having a conversation with you about compensation for Keith, because I look at bird dogging in a couple different ways. If someone says, "Hey, Jordan, I go to church with you and there's this vacant house next door to me. Here's the address." Okay, well, that's got very little value because Jordan's got to track it down, find who it is, call them, negotiate, get a deal. There's value there, but a lot lower value, all the way up to what Keith did, which was, really got this lead at the table for Jordan. So Jordan can walk in there, all the rapport is there, all the goodwill's there, all the trust is there. And then there's all the way to like, okay, well, you even negotiated the contract and got to the price and anywhere in between. So this is a conversation that Jordan and I had, was like, okay, well, what should this look like? And I love, Jordan, your attitude, which was, I really appreciate Keith. I really love what he did. He really handed this off well to me. How do we compensate him well so that he's excited about doing this again, hopefully? And also at the same time, knowing that he's jump starting his own business and his own career, and that's totally cool. And we're supportive of that. So it's not even like we want Keith to stay bird dogging. We actually want Keith to become his own 6 and eventually 7-figure producer. How did we come to that conclusion, Jordan?
Yeah, well, in transparency, we really tried to figure out, one, what's going to be a win for your students, because the goal here is for the new guys, even the seasoned guys and girls, to have access to leads, be able to plug into a system that really doesn't cost them anything, that can jumpstart their business. And that's exactly what Keith has done. So that was the goal. Now, there's also the piece of it of, okay, if that was an acquisition manager that was managing that lead, getting on appointment, taking that lead all the way to the finish line, what would they get paid? And then there's the lower tier, which is what do virtual assistants do? Call and build rapport and log some notes and stuff like that. So we were trying to figure out what really made sense. And truthfully, it was kind of tough. I mean, we didn't really know what to do, because I want you guys to all be paid really well, but also there's that line of like, well, we could hire just, an American accent per hour to call these leads, but Keith and your students, and that's the goal here, is to bring everything full circle. So we basically talked about 5 and 10%, which 5% was just finding a lead and pushing it to my CRM, me and my team. We take it, we go deal with it, we do everything. It's literally just, and there's some people on the call here now that they just hit those leads, find some motivation, shoot it to our CRM. And, 1 out of 10 or 1 out of 50 or whatever will turn into a deal. And then the 10% would be, hey, basically get it to a contract. Like, you can work it on the phone virtually from your own market. You can do whatever, but like me and my team, we can help you run numbers, but you're the one that gets it all the way to a contract.
Or at least a verbal agreement on a price.
Yeah, at least we can go sign in person. And so we did 10%, for Keith. And it's really because he got it to a contract. Like, they wanted to do business with us. They were ready. All they needed was somebody in person with them that they liked and trusted, and they were willing to do a fair deal. So, yeah.
And Keith, how did you feel about that?
To be honest with you, I didn't have the tools to close the deal. She told me, I'm not going to sign anything over the phone. I've been scammed before. And that just immediately pivoted to, oh, well, Jordan can come and meet you. I have a guy that'll come and do this for you. And he went out and met her and then did the deal. It's like, probably would not have pulled that off if that was just a random lead in my pipeline at this point, because she said she wasn't signing over the phone. So just the ability to JV with you guys and have Jordan go out to this lady's house and get the deal done to make anything at all is totally fine with me. I really just passed the torch over to Jordan, and he went and won the Olympics with us. So I was like, heck yeah, it's perfect for me. I was very little involved and still made 10% of the deal, which I think was fair.
That's awesome. Yeah. So Jordan, talk to us about your dispo side now. So you got the contract for 100,000. What did dispo look like?
We were really limited on this one, honestly, given the seller's circumstances, PTSD, condition of the property. Sellers really did not want us back in the house, didn't want contractors coming through, like didn't want us to get bids on stuff. They wanted to get out, give us the keys, and then we can do our thing. So yeah, I have a really, really great buyer in our market that I've done a lot of deals with. And 9 times out of 10, he's within a few grand of the highest paying buyer in our market, which is why we do so many deals with him. If he's too low, we won't. He's a good friend of mine as well. So me and him just kind of went over, and I already knew this was probably the buyer. I thought maybe we'd, wholesale this 135, 140, something like that. I didn't tell him where we were at under contract or anything.
Mhm.
And he gave me 135. And I was like, man, David, I'm not going to send this to anybody else. I was like, you got exclusive rights to this one. And I bumped him up a little bit
Yeah.
and brought him up to 140. And he was cool with the people being in the property a little bit after closing. He was cool with how we were facilitating everything. So it was a strong deal. Wanted to get the first one across the finish line. Didn't want to have any issues. Didn't want to have the sellers, any problems with buyers, any of that stuff.
So 40,000 wholesale. Wow, that's phenomenal. And it goes to show too that the power of those relationships with your buyers. So I love that even though he's a good buyer and he pays well and he ends up winning a lot of deals. This one might be unique because you had such a limited time and he paid so well. But typically you want to make sure that you're putting it out to the market. You're always building your list. You're always getting as many eyeballs as you can because your job as a wholesaler is to find the highest paying buyer in the market, not just go to what's easy or convenient.
And
And
we will always work that process. And my dispo guy, he knows on every
yep,
deal, we're going to work that process. Even if we sell it to the same buyer, whatever the case may be, we're always going to work that
yep.
process to make sure we're in line.
Even if they're a go-to buyer, you make him compete for price, right? Compete on price. He needs to know that you're looking at other people too. So he stays on, I call it keep them honest. They're going to stay honest by giving you the highest price that they can pay versus just, hey, Jordan, do me a favor, give me a deal on this one. I'll catch you up on the next one. Like that's what starts to happen when you just have your go-to buyers every time. They're going to start to beat you down. And next thing you know, you're leaving a lot of money on the table. And that's a lazy thing because you're not working the buyers in your market very well.
We got a property in Mulberry, Florida, and assigned it for 60, and then 2 days later, a guy comes in desperate for a deal at 90. So we learned very quickly that we jumped on a little bit too early. So lesson learned already.
I did an interview a little while ago with Hanif Sykes, and he had this hot deal. And when he put it out to dispose, like overwhelming response of interest. And he did an open house like the next day, and cars are lined up in the street, and there's like a couple dozen buyers there. And one buyer came up and he said, what will it take to lock it up right now? And he said, well, make me an offer. And he made an offer. And he's like, no, even though it was like over his asking price, he said no. And he did another open house and ended up getting like a lot more money because he just was patient to get all the buyers in there and everybody putting in their number and then took the highest. So sometimes we get really overeager and we'll take those lower numbers instead of being a little bit patient and finding the highest buyer. Awesome deal, guys. And I just love the collaboration. I love that, Keith, you're just willing to put in the work. I mean, honestly, most people wouldn't do 1,000 calls, Keith. I mean, that's why you're going to do really well at this business. That's why you are doing well. I mean, it's great to see you growing so fast. You're young and eager and ambitious. You got a great attitude. You got great heart. You're caring about people. I mean, you've got everything it takes to do this business really well. And Jordan mentoring you, Jordan's got a heart of gold and really does everything the right way in this business, laying the foundation. If there's anybody you can learn from, Jordan's one of those people that could really help you build out a strong foundation to do this well. And guys, if you're in Fast Track, Jordan's probably willing to give you leads. It's an awesome place to practice. These are leads sitting in the CRM that aren't really going anywhere. We wouldn't open this up to anybody and everybody because there is the worry that someone could like steal our leads. But if you're in our Fast Track program and you're someone that wants to work on phone skills and get mentored at the same time, it's a great opportunity.
I just have to throw out there that I didn't know anything about talking to people. And I was like, I hate this. I do not want to call these people right now. And I just did it. And I blush super easy. So I'm sitting here on the phone talking to people hundreds of miles away, like blushing, like, oh, they're mad at me. And I got over it. I was like, I just need to do a deal. What am I even worried about? And I find her, and she desperately needed help. It worked out perfectly. I couldn't have asked for a better deal. So it's going to work if you put the reps in. You're right. It's a numbers game.
I mean, honestly, Keith, with no experience, no skills, no anything, nervous, all the things, this business is still mostly about showing up. I'd say it's 80% showing up. It really is because the stars will align. I mean, if you can talk to somebody and you're a nice person, that's half the battle, right? Because let them tell you their concerns and offer a solution. Hey, we can solve this for you. It's about being in the right place at the right time. So how do you get in the right place at the right time? The way to increase your odds of being at the right place at the right time where the stars align is do 1,000 calls and it'll happen. I mean, that's it. I interviewed Chris Allen years ago when he first got started. He was probably 20, college student, and he's doing like 500,000 a year in wholesaling. And I said, Chris, what's your secret to success? And he's like, I show up and I just pick up the phone and I do that till 5 o'clock. He's like, that's it. That's all I do. I don't even really know what I'm doing, but I put in the reps every day, but I'm consistent. And he's doing $500,000 in revenue, just showing up. You know, once you show up, then work on the other 10 or 20%, which is your skills and all these things, right? But honestly, the how to do it and all that, that's the 20%. The 80% is just showing up and picking up the phone and talking to people. That's literally most of what it takes to do this well. To me, it's fascinating that that's what it takes.
I wanted to say thank you to all of you, especially you, Jordan and Jerry, for the opportunity to do that. The business is going really well right now, so this definitely kick-started everything we're rolling into now. Gratitude is always there for the opportunity.
In the beginning, you know, getting to some revenue is what creates that confidence. And look at you now, you know, just doing so good. So super proud of you. And Jordan, you're a flipping genius. Keith, you're a flipping genius. Thank you, everybody, for your encouragement. Leave a comment and say, Jordan and Keith, you guys are flipping geniuses. Thanks again, Jordan.